Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people of Luchu, people of the beautiful Ryukyuan Islands, people of Okinawa. My name is Alfred de Zayas, and I am the former independent expert on international order. I served the United Nations Human Rights Council from 2012 to 2018. I produced 14 reports for the General Assembly and for the Human Rights Council. I issued 100 press releases and media statements on a number of issues, one of them being the self-determination of peoples. My 2014 report was devoted entirely to the theory and practice of self-determination. This is very relevant to many peoples, not only to the Luchuans. There are many aspirants to the exercise of self-governance. I can name many. I can name the people of West Papua, the people of Rapa Nui, the Moluccans, the people of Catalonia, the people of Southern Tyrol, the people of Corsica, the Mapuche indigenous populations of Chile, the indigenous populations of Alaska and Hawaii. I've written extensively on the failure of the United Nations to guarantee the self-determination of the native population of Alaska and of the native population of Hawaii. Both of these occupied territories were in the list of non-self-governing territories, which should have attained self-determination and independence. Instead of that, the United States organized a thoroughly fraudulent referendum in Alaska and another one in Hawaii, whereby natives were denied the right to vote because they didn't speak proper English, whereby United States soldiers stationed in Alaska and Hawaii were allowed to vote. Matter of fact, were even paid $5 to go and vote, so that the result of the vote was, of course, for incorporating Alaska and Hawaii into the United States as the new states number 49 and number 50 respectively. Now, this fraud was confirmed by the General Assembly in Resolution 1469. That is something that I would like to see changed. I would like to revisit these resolution and the fraudulent way in which the resolution was obtained. This can be done. The General Assembly has the competence to revisit its prior resolutions. I can give an example. Resolution 3379 of the 10th of November 1975 was annulled by a subsequent resolution, 46/86 of 1991. So changing Resolution 1649 would be just for the peoples of Alaska and Hawaii. With regard to the self-determination of the people of Okinawa and the Ryukyuan Islands, there's no reason why these territories should not have been decolonized. Essentially, they had been illegally occupied and annexed by Japan at the end of the 19th century, and at the latest with the end of the Second World War in 1945, and with the entry into force of the United Nations Charter, the Ryukyuan Islands should have attained self-determination. It was, indeed, a people with a history of thousands of years and centuries of diplomatic relations with other countries, including China. And if you look for a definition of a people, you will find it in many United Nations documents. I myself use the Kirby resolution definition, named after the Australian judge Michael Kirby. And what is a people? Well, a people is a population that shares an identity, shares culture, shares history, heritage, language, religion, and identifies as such. So we have, without a doubt, a Luchuan people, and they can claim self-determination pursuant to Article 1 of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and Article 1 of the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. In principle, they should be able to claim this before the United Nations Human Rights Committee. Unfortunately, Japan is not a state party to the optional protocol to the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So individuals cannot present a case before the Human Rights Committee. But that does not prevent non-governmental organizations and does not prevent the people of Luchu in approaching the Human Rights Committee and demanding that their concerns be taken seriously when the next periodic report of Japan is examined. And then it's for Luchuan NGOs and for the Luchuan people to articulate their needs before the Human Rights Committee. And the Human Rights Committee will invite, in the preparation of the questions for examination of the Japanese report, they will invite Luchuan NGOs to present their case before the committee, before the examination of the Japanese report. Now, having talked about the concept of decolonization, decolonization started already in 1946-47 with the separation of the Indian subcontinent from the so-called British Empire. Out of this enormous landmass, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh emerged. In the 1960s and 70s, Africa and most of the still remaining colonies in Asia attained their independence. Unfortunately, some people were forgotten. Some people never achieved self-determination, including the people of the Okinawa Islands. I was thinking of another island the island of Sri Lanka, where you have two distinct populations. You have the Sinhalese and you have the Tamils. And they're artificially put together. It is very unfortunate for the Tamils. The Tamils fought for their independence and lost. They had a 30 years struggle for independence. The world watched as they were massacred. The estimates of civilians killed is upwards of 200,000 in Sri Lanka. Certainly, the manner in which the war was conducted by the Sinhalese would qualify as genocide for purposes of the 1948 Genocide Convention. And this makes me think, of course, of the right of the Palestinian people to self-determination. As everybody knows, it was the United Nations that ended the British mandate over Palestine and enabled Israel to emerge as an independent state on the condition that also a Palestinian independent state would also emerge. And for a variety of reasons, that did not happen. And what we watched since 1947-48 is the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people by Israel with the complicity of the Europeans and of the United States. The situation is different with regard to Luchu. Unfortunately, there is no information on Okinawa and the Luchuan people in, shall we say, in the mainstream media. You speak to someone at the United Nations in Geneva about Luchu, they've never heard the word. They don't know what Luchu is or what the Ryukyuan Islands are or where they are. If you mention Okinawa, they will remember the Battle of Okinawa in the Second World War, and they know vaguely that there's an American base in Okinawa, but that is the extent of it. So if the people of Luchu aspire to self-governance and aspire to self-determination, and they have every right to, then we have to work on getting the message out. We have to work on sensitizing academia, sensitizing the universities to pick this up, sensitizing journalists, sensitizing historians, sensitizing all sorts of intelligentsia to address the issue of the right of the Luchuan people to independence. In order to achieve that, however, you need substantial political support. And where can this political support come from? Well, obviously and primarily from its neighbor, from China. And China should have an interest because the Ryukyu Islands host the American base at Okinawa, which is a direct threat to the security of China. So there is an interest in dismantling Okinawa and returning Okinawa to the people of Okinawa and to the people of the Ryukyu Islands. Here again, in order to achieve any kind of change, you need the support of major powers And I believe that the BRICS powers, Brazil and Russia and India and China and South Africa and the other members of BRICS, could join forces in order to achieve the independence of the Ryukyu Islands. Everything in international law entails horse trading. They entail, say, do ut des entails a give and take. So it is important for the concerns of the Ryukyuan people to be carried to the Human Rights Council, to the General Assembly, to the Security Council by numerous countries. I would like to hear China articulating the importance of achieving self-determination for the people of Okinawa. In my book, Building a Just World Order, Clarity Press, 2021, I formulate 25 principles of international order. And among those 25 principles is the principle of self-determination. I also devote an entire chapter to the issue of self-determination, and I mention the case of Ryukyu. I mention Okinawa. In my more recent book, The Human Rights Industry, I devote a chapter to the issue of self-determination as a conflict prevention strategy. It is not the achievement or the realization of self-determination that causes conflict or that causes war. It is the unjust denial of self-determination. And that is what we see. We see an unjust denial of the self-determination of the Tamils, of the self-determination of the Palestinians, of the self-determination of the Ryukyuans. And that is what we should all try to end through diplomacy, through dialogue, through peaceful negotiation. So I encourage you to reach out to the United Nations, to use all the mechanisms at your disposal, to reach out to the Human Rights Committee, to reach out to the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, and to articulate your demands and to insist that you not be forgotten. If self-determination has been granted to the people of Kosovo, it should be by the same precedent, by the same principle. It should also be granted to the people of Okinawa. So do not give up. I mean, you have suffered more than 100 years of Japanese occupation, but like so many decolonized countries in Africa, the colonial period can and should end. And even imperfect, inchoate decolonization can be revisited. And I have one example being the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice in the case of Mauritius, in which the International Court of Justice decided that the decolonization of Mauritius was imperfect, incomplete, and that the United Kingdom had to correct the situation. What happened there? Not unlike the situation in Okinawa. The Brits separated the Chago Islands from Mauritius in order to give the Chago Islands to the United States, for the United States to build its mega base in the island of Diego Garcia. That is the obstacle to the self-determination of the people of Chagos Island. But the International Court of Justice said the United Kingdom must correct the situation. If we have a similar advisory opinion in the International Court of Justice with regard to the Ryukyuan Islands, the court would say, in an advisory opinion, that the Luchuans have a right, a prioritary right to self-determination, and that there's no justification to have an American base on the island of Okinawa when practically the entire population of Okinawa do not want an American base there, and certainly do not want an expansion of the base. And even if the Luchuans have hitherto not been successful in challenging that before Japanese courts, the Japanese courts have decided in favor of Japan and in favor of Japanese sovereignty over the Ryukyu Islands. That doesn't mean that the International Court of Justice will not decide differently, that the International Court of Justice will not order Japan to release the Ryukyuan people to their independence, to their right of self-determination. And then the world community, what I call the global majority in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, should show solidarity with the people of Luchu and demand that the United States remove this threat from the region, remove the base of Okinawa, and that Japan finally terminate its occupation of the islands, which, as I said, has not been all that long. There's not a great history, and certainly no positive history of Japanese contribution to the people of Luchu. Quite the contrary, it's been a history of colonialism, of Japanese colonialism over the people of the Ryukyu Islands. So that should be rejected by the international community, by the world majority. This is my hope, and I promise you my solidarity, and that I will do whatever is within my power as an author, as a professor, to give visibility to your concerns, in the hope that sooner rather than later you will achieve self-determination. I thank you.